This is iRacing.
There's been ambitious circuits built in the past, but few in recent time compare to the scale of the Bend. The challenge is going to be just as big today as we get ready to watch round 3 of the IMSA Vintage series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is former racer Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Christian Duploy, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The Bend is a newer addition to iRacing, so why don't we head to our track guide to learn a little bit about it. Welcome to the Bend Motorsport Park. Located about an hour east of Adelaide, this relatively new facility boasts not only modern amenities, but a mind-boggling adaptability to just about any type of racing. With 7 different layouts available on iRacing, ranging from nearly 5 miles to barely over 1 mile, this circuit is suitable for everything from Formula V's up to sports car prototypes. In fact, it is currently the second longest permanent racecourse in the world, only behind the Nürburgring. While its surroundings might look a little bland at times, the track itself is not lacking in variety and excitement. Slow hairpins, fast winding S's, exciting rises and falls in elevation all ensure that you'll never be bored during the lap. It hosts everything from motorcycles to touring cars, sports cars, and has even held a round of Asian Le Mans. Of course, the crown jewel is the ever-popular Australian supercars. Though it was only built in 2018, it's easy to see why this track has gained a fan base so quickly in its short history. Yeah, there is going to be a lot to try and memorize out here, Joey. I mean, there's not many tracks that I've gone to that have listed 35 corners.
Yeah, 35 turns in just under 5 miles, 4.82 miles to be exact. And I think that we are all going to be on a learning session here in this IMSA Vintage Series race to really see how this multi-class attacks these 35 turns. You see them really packed in here. One big long straightaway down the front straight here going into turn number 1. So I expect some good passing opportunities to be down there into that brake zone, but then it's going to be navigating each one of these sectors, and you can see they can be very, very complicated, linking one set of corners into another. As you saw on our track guide, there are also some apex curves that you want to stay away from, especially in some of these GTP cars, but can't wait to see how this one races.
Same here. It's going to be a learning curve for both the drivers and for us, as this is the first time we've been calling a race at this track, and there's a lot to go over. But we are now into the third round of the championship. Let's take a quick look at the GTP standings. Valenteus also leading over here, as we saw earlier today, was leading in the Grand Prix Legends Series, Ivan Platon, though only 3 points back with Christoph Olenek, tied there with Pepe Fuentes for the third position. In fact, top 6 drivers all separated by 7 points. The point scoring system that they have in this series keeps it pretty close at the front, at least in these early stages until we start to see a breakout. I wouldn't doubt that Adrius could maybe be that car yet again. That's the GTP cars. We also have the GTO class out here.
Yeah, those are those all-wheel drive turbocharged Audis, and right now it is Hagner leading the way, but look at how close these top 3 are. Mickey Friesen only 3 points back, and Van Hicks 4 points out of that lead position. Josh Brain sitting in 4th place, 10 points back, with Schuster, Andreas Schuster, sitting here inside the top 5. Ian Haycox in 6th, Doug Cloud 7th. Noel Lundberg back here in 8th, Aitor Sintes Galindo in 9th, and Skovgaard back here in 10th. Important to remember, though, we've only had a few of these points races so far here this season, so lots more to come.
Now, as we take a look at the race details for today's event, we have our standard format for this one. It's going to be 40 minutes long, so it's a bit of a sprint out there. Open setups in this series. I have to imagine some downforce is probably in order for our GTPs. They don't have a spare car. Now, this is a pretty wide open track in a lot of places, so you're not likely to hit something, but there is some places where you do have to watch out. Drive through at 17 incidents, and then they will have additional penalties every 25 after that. So keep it within the track boundaries, keep it off of the paved runoff, and hopefully you'll be okay to the finish. As for qualifying, it is such a long lap that we're still waiting for the first times to come in.
Yeah, exactly. They're out there warming everything up, probably on that first timed lap, and got about 25 cars out here taking the race here on what is Saturday morning, at least on the West Coast, Saturday midday. If you're over there on the eastern side of the U.S. watching some of these cars go around, and hey, you know what? They're not upside down, Joe.
Exactly. So this Australian track at least has kept them right side up visually for us. You can see coming through this last part of the lap for some of these cars, just how nonstop a lot of the corners are. A few rises and crests throughout to make some quite blind turns, and that will make a big difference, no doubt, for the GTOs, which don't have as much downforce on them. Valenteus comes across the line, and actually, well, maybe that wasn't. No, I guess that was just still the first out lap. So he hasn't even set a time yet in this car. My goodness, we are going to be waiting a while before we get some times on the board.
And remember, if it's taken, call it 3 minutes on that out lap, this first time lap should be going a little bit faster, but not a ton. If you waited too long in that pit lane, you might not be able to get that second lap in. So this is kind of one of those circuits that you got to get out there and to it pretty much immediately.
Seeing Valenteus as we ride on board, coming through some of these quicker sectors. That's the other thing that I think is interesting in this, Joey. It is such a long lap that, kind of like the Nürburgring, you've got pretty much every corner imaginable, from the quick sweepers that we've got here to some of the slower hairpins.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how the multi-class races, because they totally make different speeds in different areas of the racetrack. You can see how fast these GTPs are through, call it the higher speed sections, using all of those aerodynamic additions on the cars and really being able to glue the car down to the road. Now, when we talk about the GTOs, it is all in the mechanical grip. It is an all-wheel drive brick out there, so it is not an aerodynamic efficient car. The GTPs go real fast in the real fast sections. The GTOs really fast in the slower speed sections.
As Van Hicksey here is coming through, I think, one of those quicker sections towards the middle lap. Although, no, he's coming into turn 6, it looks like. That could be a spot that you might see some attempted passes, but then it does indeed pick up again through 7 and 8 down into 9. Kind of a long double apex corner before it slows again here into turn 9. It's where we see some of that elevation change. Overall, relatively flat, but they do make good use of the little hills and crests around here to keep the drivers on their toes. This part we already saw from on board with Valenteus. This is coming through 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. They're all linked together. You talked about this earlier, Joey. If you mess up one, you're messing up all of them.
Yeah, it kind of feeds directly into the next corner, and we are starting to get some lap times on the board. Jacob Reed is the fastest so far at 2:29.6. So in terms of the GTPs, look at how much time we've got left. If you have not started your second lap, you are not going to get it in. Talking about the GTOs, Joe, this is a one-lap qualifying, kind of like what you were putting in behind the scenes here.
Yeah, it's a one and done, and that puts extra pressure on what we were talking about earlier with those incident points. If you go beyond the track boundaries, it is automatic in the iRacing sim. It will delete the lap, and with just one try at it, you do not want to go over the limit here.
Still watching Van Hicks as he's still cycling through his first complete timed lap here None of the GTOs have any lap times on the board right here, so this number 3 car is trying to set the pace early, and with only 1:30 seconds left here, he is looking to close out this lap. I do believe he is one of the lead GTOs. Noel Lundberg currently puts a lap time on the board, 2:57.2.
Wow. Nearly 3 minutes for a lap for these GTO machines. I'm curious what that will mean for traffic, especially since we don't have a huge field here. Will they get away without catching them too many times over the course of this 40-minute race? I believe this is the last corner coming up here for Joram. Let's see where this places him, as Lundberg is still your quickest with that 2:57.2 across the line, 2:58.8. So Van Hicks is only going to go fourth. Doug Cloud, though, in third. And Jacob Reed, or no, that was Olenek, I suppose, in the number 9. He just moved up to the front row.
Nice job there from the number 9 car. So we got our cameras focused on the number 1. This is Andreas Valenteus out here. He's got a lap time of a 2:29.7 right now. Pole position is a 2:29.6. I do see on my time in scoring, he's kind of flirting with just a touch faster than his first qualifying effort. And I did believe that he was one of these cars that was able to get through to start finish, but he runs wide in that set of corners. Going to have to pull it off to the side and scrap that second lap.
Jacob Reed does get a second lap, and he proves to a 2:29.3, putting himself farther away. Olenek still in second. Valenteus sitting in third at this stage. And as the clock now hits 0, qualifying is over. Incredibly, there was only one driver that failed to set a time, and that was Ian Haycox, down to the GTOs. In the meantime, I believe we've got an opportunity to go through our starting grid, starting with the GTP cars here today. And how important will that track position be in this race? As like we said, we're all kind of learning as we go. Jacob Reed on the pole will be flanked by Pepe Fuentes. Olenek starts from third there late in the qualifying, getting shuffled downwards. Valenteus only good enough for fourth, surprising for him. Farron Grau is P5. Henning Schwebig is going to be starting in third. David Ricciardi is sitting in seventh, with Laus Stolzen in eighth. Then you've got Brennan Lim on the inside of row 5 in ninth, and Emilio Dicciari starting in 10th. Only one more of our GTPs, Andre Felipe Diaz, starting 11th.
Then over to our GTO field, your pole sitter is the number 4 car of Noel Lundberg. That lap time of 2:57.2. In second place is going to be Mickey Friesen. In third is going to be Doug Cloud. Van Hicks is going to be starting in fourth in that GTO class. Josh Brain starting in fifth with Sam Skovgaard in sixth place. Brandon White back here in 7th with Jared Swaim in 8th. Martin Krejcik in 9th with Jamie Hamel-Smith rounding out the top 10. And a few more here in our Audis. We've got Richard Heinman starting in 11th. Matthew Torres in 12th. And Ian Haycox rounding out our 13-car field.
Well, we can tell how Dicciari feels about this track. In the text chat, he has entered welcome to the first and hope last, the Bend IMSA Vintage Series race. He's not a fan, apparently, of this course. I'm sure we'll divide opinions. And as we see them lined up, ready to go, the other good thing that at least we can rely on is that they have a short pace lap.
Oh, yeah, that is I wasn't even thinking about that, but that's a good point. Yeah, that would be a nearly 5-mile pace lap. That would be something else to kind of have to sit through.
It'd be a long time. I guess in the real world, they would have to sit through that. They could pick up the pace in a few places. Reed going to start them off as I think they're coming around just the last few 5 or 6 corners, and then off they will go to start this 40-minute event. No scheduled pit stops, so it is a sprint to start to finish. If you get any sort of damage that you do have to visit pit lane, it's going to be extra painful for our competitors. The good news for them is the top 15 scores points in this series, so everybody is going to score points today who decided to show up to this track in somewhat of a smaller field. And coming down to the last few turns, no doubt Jacob Reed is going to be so focused, Joey, on this start. the last thing he probably wants is to lose that lead into turn one.
Absolutely, and I know that last week over at the Italian circuit, he had a little bit of some troubles on that opening lap, found himself shuffled way down the order, and then it was a little bit of a scrappy race. He somehow came back for the win, but it was kind of due to others' misfortune, so I think that he's hoping for a little bit of a cleaner race there in that green and yellow number 2 today.
On board with Valenteus. Like we said, a bit of a surprise to find him starting from 4th. Just has 1 row in front of him. Maybe he could shoot through the middle on this start, try and take that away. It is going to be a bit of a slipstream down this long straight. There goes the pace car on in, giving control to Jacob Reed, and the green flag is out, and he catches them napping. Look at that. He shoots away down to turn 1 with Fuentes battling with Olenek for that second spot. It looks like Valenteus is going to try to send it up the inside of both of them to take second, and he might be able to do that. He squeezes them out. He is ahead and into P2 from 4th.
Nice aggressive move, and the GTOs have also taken the green flag. Noel Lundberg got a nice jump, and Van Hicks also tried to get that P3 away, but finally settles back into 4th place as we settle in on our GTP front of the field. Look at how aggressive some of these braking maneuvers are getting into these zones.
Oh, Christoph went way too far. He falls down to 4th now after starting in 3rd. Almost was able to hold on to that over Fuentes, but they start to get single file in that GTP class, with Reed still leading by about 9/10 of a second. Try to do his best to put distance on Valenteus.
And I gotta report that Noel Lundberg almost lost the lead. He almost drove it off the racetrack himself, but somehow managed to gather it back up, and thankfully he was on the inside for the next set of corners. You see that purple and white number 6 car, that's Mickey Friesen. He was up alongside of our leader. I think he's looking for a way through if there's another mistake further up the road.
All right, coming up into another heavy braking zone here, and then it starts to switch back and forth for these cars as we see the onboard for Mickey Friesen through 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 before finally they are going to be released into the long sweeper of 21, and then they might have a shot into turn 23 for a pass. We check back in with Olenek, who has lost more places. He's all the way down to 6, and Farron Grau is the latest to try to demote him round the outside, and he's got it done.
Oh, but it's still side by side here. Almost contact between the front right and the left rear. But Farron Grau in that number 10 car, like you said, is up into 5th place. Unfortunately for Christoph, now he's lost 3 positions here on this opening lap. And I think what's kind of crazy to me, we haven't even completed lap number 1 yet.
We're still getting there. It's not going to be that many laps around this place in 40 minutes, that's for sure. Something really not going great at the start here for the number 9. Not sure if he has an issue, as Ian Haycox, who had started from towards the back anyways, has already lost time, going way off into no man's land, it looks like.
It seemed like he kind of missed the brake zone or just kind of misjudged that brake zone, but I got to give it to Ian that he didn't collect anybody else, just found a clean piece to shoot through the gap, and unfortunately lost a lot of track time.
Back up to Laust Olsen, currently fighting for 6th position, seeing if he could take down Christoph at least one more spot. Laust is up 1 from where he began, having started in 8th. Checking back in now with our GTOs. Lundberg getting himself a gap of about 7/10 of a second over Mickey Friesen, continuing to chase. Doug Cloud sitting pretty here with a potential podium, though he's being challenged by Van Hicks. And Jared Swaim is on the outside of Martin Krejcik. Been a long time since I've had to say his name. And Martin is not going to be able to stay ahead of him, although we could get a cut back here as we pick up pace coming out of 3 and into 4.
And if Jared is able to pass Martin up here, I was just noticing on timing and scoring, there has yet to be a completed pass in our GTO field. So exactly where they qualified is where they are running. Jared is trying to change that.
Interesting. So it looks like passing might be a bit of a premium for these 4-wheel drive cars around this twisty track that need longer braking zones to really make the difference. On board with Joram. in the number 3. Hailing from Australia, so a bit of a home circuit for him, but not on the podium as it stands now. Continues to hound the number 11 of Doug Cloud.
I'd be curious to watch this car, though, because he was second row and tried to do an over-under on that initial green flag. He was actually side-by-side as we get a replay of what happened here with Jared Swain. Oh, that was a huge wiggle, but thankfully the all-wheel drive and the Audi, he was able to put his foot to the floor and power slide out of that thing, so he is actually now down one position. I was going to say, though, about Van Hicks, he looked pretty aggressive on that opening lap. I wonder if he has got something kind of in his pocket here for later.
Could be, as we ride on board with Joram. And this is past the support pits here on the far side of the circuit. There's another one of those spots where you can see there's a big rise on the track. Got to make sure and hit your markers very well. And unfortunately for them, there is not a lot of scenery out beyond to try and pick as a marker coming into those blind corners.
A lot of these corners look very, very similar. I was going to make a comment about the Ian Haycox incident on the opening lap. I just wonder if he got unsighted because he simply thought he was at one corner, because they all look so similar.
I wouldn't doubt it. I know I would still be struggling at times, especially if you are in the midst of a battle. I'm sure it's easy to kind of lose track of where you are in the heat of the moment. Doug Cloud will hold on to P3, but it seems like Joram is really starting to lay it on thick here. Oh, and a lockup on the inside tire for Doug Cloud is going to put him a bit off.
And I think that was turn 34. Yep, here's turn 35. This is coming out onto the front straight. Here comes Van Hicks with a nice run. Doug Cloud is going to go fully defensive along the right side, the driver's right side of the racetrack. Let's see if Van Hicks can get deep on the brakes. Doug Cloud even deeper to defend P3. Let's see about the over-under. Van Hicks has got some momentum. Track bends around the left, and now finally goes Van Hicks's way.
A nice move, just setting that one up. Didn't have the desired line coming into the first corner, but made good on that and switched around for that P3. So can he run away from Doug Cloud now that he's managed that, as Doug actually went a little deep there. But we're checking in on Jacob Reed, and he's got about 1.3 seconds. I think that's pretty close to what it was near the start of this race over Valenteus. Doing his best to keep ahead. And if they do run into that traffic, this could be crucial laps for Jacob to make that gap, so he has a little bit of a buffer.
Remember what we were talking about with the multi-class traffic and how the GTPs are so much faster in certain sections? But, I mean, just the lap times, they're 30 seconds faster than the GTOs. I have a feeling that when they catch these GTOs, they're going to have to be very, very careful on which section, which corners they're going to try to make a pass on. I know these drivers are very aggressive around the outside. That's kind of the best opportunity to use that aerodynamic grip. But remember, this is a brand new circuit for everybody.
Indeed it is. Back to Krajcik and Swain, who we saw fighting a little bit earlier. If they can reach a bit of a truce, they do have Brandon White not that far ahead of the pair of them. So there could be yet another position on hand. Ooh, that was a bit of a late move, but it is sticking to the racing line for Krajcik, so I'd say that's fair game. Swain, though, had to back out of it before they got into the braking zone.
I'm sure that Jared wants to get back up there. Remember, we caught that huge power slide wiggle that he was able to catch, but through that he lost the position. Talking about 8th place there, so I'm sure that Jared has got the visor down, the proverbial visor down, gripping the wheel tight and trying to get that position back that he lost, because not only is Martin right in front of him, but Brandon White as well. They've got 2 cars there.
They are being caught by Hamill Smith, though, so there could be more complications from behind if they do start fighting some more, and it does seem like Jared has got some good pace here. He's been sticking very close to the spoiler of the number 15, and they're getting towards the end of the lap now, so he should get an opportunity on the main straight, but he's got to set it up right.
About these over-under attempts, we had made the comment about how one corner always feeds into the next, so if you get on the back foot, you're going to be on the back foot for the next corner, and then the next corner, kind of just snowballs into a very, very bad situation, and anybody behind that is on the racing line will start to take advantage.
And he doesn't get the exit he needs right at the critical moment, out of 35 onto the pit straight, and away goes Krajcik, just putting more distance between himself and the number 18. I guess the good news is Hamill Smith also wasn't near enough to try and capitalize on that. Trying to check and see how far apart we are on that car's lapping. It does look like there is still a bit of time before they get there. Maybe about 4 more laps, I think, and then you'll start to see the GTPs catching the GTOs.
Yeah, like I said, it's about 30 seconds, and we got to clear that 3-minute lap time mark. So, yeah, I agree with you. Probably a handful more laps or so, but when they do catch them, like I said, it is going to get very, very interesting with the closing rates with these highly aerodynamic cars versus the Audi GTOs that are pretty good through the launch and acceleration phase, but these long medium speed corners, they are very, very slow in comparison to those prototype machines.
They like to understeer too. It's hard to dial that out of these cars. And Jared Swaim, you could see, was struggling there through the middle of this lap. I think this is coming up to that S's section. We were kind of joking beforehand, the fact that there are no named corners, at least that we're aware of yet. This is definitely a section I feel like that deserves a name, that twisty back and forth, constant long, and a lot of camber change.
Got to be on top of it. Honestly, it reminds me of if you watched, DTM in call it the 90s or so. They had tons of chicanes, and that really is kind of what reminds me of it, is just the fast left, right emergency lane change maneuvers.
That's a good way of comparing it. He's caught back up, so second, or at least the middle portion of the lap seems to go a lot better for Swaim as he just continues to regain ground. But in the crucial parts, he loses once again. Back to Jacob Reed. It's up to 1.5 seconds. It is rare that you find someone that is quicker than Valenteus, but Reed, known for his open wheel prowess, has translated that well to these sports cars because they do share some similarities with the ground effects of these machines.
And Jacob Reed is no stranger to the vintage machines either. It doesn't matter if it's an open wheeler like you were mentioning, he's so good in, or if it's these prototypes, or if it's a Lotus 79, he dabbles in the 49s as well. So I think anytime you see Jacob Reed kind of pop up in your iRacing session, it's going to be kind of tough to win that one.
Exactly. If it gives you any idea, he's got over 7,000 iRating, but then that is even topped by Valenteus, who is over 8,500 iRating. But they are two titans out there, and if they get close enough, it's going to be an almighty battle between them. As we check back in on this battle, Haycox has moved out of last place. He's now catching up to Richard Heinemann and battling for P11. He's going to get a big tow in these boxy cars down the main straight.
See if Ian can do anything about this. I don't think that he was too happy with his qualifying effort. He shows a nose to the inside, outbreaks Heinemann there. So he's going to grab that 11th place position. As we were watching our GTP leaders, I was noticing kind of the back of our GTO field starting to be in that same shot. I have a feeling our overall leaders are going to start to run into that multi-class traffic here, at least the back end of it this lap.
Checking my track map again. Yeah, they could catch them this lap, although it might be close on whether they get there or not. In the meantime, nice little fight here for P3. Fuentes having lost that front row start, while Schwebig is up 2 from where he started in that number 12 machine. Just kind of sizing them up. Oh, and there you go. Okay, I didn't think we'd catch them, but someone must have had an issue in our GTOs, as there's the traffic right there.
Yeah, that's our first of the GTO cars. I believe that was Matthew in the number 24 car. And actually just up the road, our leader is about to run into the back of that Ian Haycox battle that we were just kind of watching down on the front straightaway here. So here is Jacob Reed, and he's actually going to get held up quite a bit by that GTO right there. It was a 1.3 second lead, but now Valenteus has kind of got to swallow that same pill, got held up in that same S section.
So it worked out even that time. It might not every time. Would be a nice, easier pass on that run down to turn 23, although he barely outbrakes Ian Haycox there, does Valenteus into the hairpin and got by just in time. The gap has not changed. It stays at about 1.4 seconds between him and Jacob Reed, but there is still about a dozen other GTOs to go.
And I'd keep my camera right here on Jacob Reed. He is about to run into a 3-pack of GTOs, and we are smack in the middle of this lap right here. There's not a ton of straightaways. Jacob Reed is going to have to find his way through this pack of cars. Same thing with Valenteus. This could be an opportunity for him to close that gap.
That's one of the battles we were watching earlier. Swaim versus Krejcik. Multiple cars is always going to be more difficult, especially when they're battling for position. He's got to be oh so careful. Krejcik holding his racing line as they are supposed to do. And this has allowed him to catch up way deep into the corner for Valenteus. Somehow he keeps it on the track. He is desperately hoping to hold on to Jacob Reed, but it looks like it didn't work out as it cost him too much on corner exit.
It's so funny, the seesaw battle, because when we started this lap, it was about 1.2, 1.3 seconds. It ballooned up to about 2. It shrunk down to about half a second. And by the time we actually reached start finish, it was all even at about 1.2 seconds. It looks like Jared is finally going to get that pass done. He's been battling here with Martin for the last handful of laps, gets that 8th place back.
Maybe a bit of that help from some of the melee of the lapping cars coming through, offering distractions. Schwebig, wow, there is a good visual on the speed difference between these cars. That's crazy.
You know, we always kind of joke about the memes and everything that get posted about the multi-class traffic in IMSA and how aggressive these prototype drivers are. Quite honestly, I'm surprised we don't get more of those guys coming over here into the IMSA Vintage series. The way they dice through these GTO Audis, it is straight up who is most aggressive.
Absolutely. And yet this group of drivers are all very familiar. It is such a close-knit community. They kind of know the dynamic between these two cars. So it's chaos, but as they like to say, Joey, it's organized chaos.
Valenteus almost ran into the back of Jacob Reed. They were both stuck behind a GTO car as we get a replay of, unfortunately, Jared Swaim going off of the racetrack again. So got that pass done, but unfortunately kind of ran it off all by himself. Joe, sorry to interrupt you, but they were stacked up behind a GTO, and I could have sworn that Valenteus just ramrodded Jacob Reed, but I don't see any damage on either of them.
You're fine. I think they did actually make contact. I'm glad you had said something. But Valenteus has had to drop back once again. And here's another car, just the wrong place at the wrong time. Mickey Friesen not doing anything incorrect here, just had no place to make the car disappear. Mickey's actually still running in second, so they're reaching the sharp end.
And as I said, I didn't see any damage. Look at the front end of this number 1 car. It has got damage all over, from the side splitters, the canards, all the way through the front end. How much is that going to affect the performance of this car?
Pretty sensitive, even though this was towards the late 80s and they weren't as refined as they are now. It definitely relied on them being pristine to get the best out of it. Let's see what the straight line speed looks like between them as they come down the main straight. Reed trying to scoot away, still at about 1.1 seconds. Max speed of, I'm seeing 170, 169. And then what did we hit for Valenteus? About the same, 169.
Might have gotten away with it. And this is one of these racetracks where it's not necessarily super aero heavy. It's more just down to the driver knowing exactly where he needs to be on the racetrack and kind of letting the car do its thing. You combine that with the multi-class traffic of having to get around those slower, call it chicanes. This is the replay here. There's the slower GTO. Valenteus trying to take advantage, and there's where the contact happened. You see him take avoiding action not to crash both of them out of the race. So props on that, but very, very close call.
Yeah, we could see just, I think, a little bit of a gap in the bodywork on the left-hand side, driver's left of his car, as we watched on board of him. Farron Grau. Whoa, my goodness. Flirting with disaster with the curbs and somehow keeping the car from spinning out. They're going to switch to the inside underneath some of our GTOs as he chases Schwebig for fourth.
Got to be careful on some of these curves with the GTP cars. You can definitely upset the platform, and with how fast they're carrying the speed through some of these apexes, all it takes is that little bit of loss of traction and you are chasing the tail.
Another car coming up here. Noel Lundberg, our leader. Oh, and catching a bit of an awkward place on the track. It's a surprisingly short burst down to the hairpin of 23. It's not long enough for Farron Grau, and he's going to have to compromise both he and our GTO leaders' line there, unfortunately.
I think Noel was probably just happy that he's got a 5.5 second lead because, like you said, it definitely compromised his line on the exit. And here in road racing, it is all about the exits. The faster you can get out of the corner, the faster you're going to be down that next straightaway. But like I said, 5.1 seconds over Mickey Friesen, who's sitting in second.
And Swain with a pass on Hamill Smith there. Now, I thought he was ahead of Hamill Smith earlier, so...
Yeah, so Swain has had a little bit of an issue being the lead of the pack. Whenever he's got a clean windshield, he seems to drive it off of the racetrack and then does a great job of making passes, and unfortunately just kind of rinse and repeat.
His own worst enemy today, it appears. Back to Brendan Lim now. Dechari, who we know is not particularly a fan of this track, is within the top 10 at this stage, although I guess that is a low bar with it being 11 cars. But the 17 is dealing with some problems in his mirrors as we hop on board the 007 cam.
Always love this. Just got the speed holes in the back of these cars. Everything taken out in terms of weight to try to make them as fast as possible. You see that car creeping up in the rear view mirror. I shouldn't say in the rear view mirror. I should say through the rear subframe. That is Brendan Lim in that, call it, what would you call that? A cherry Coke number 7?
Yeah, it kind of feels like that. A very royal purple kind of, or a wine purple that he's got on that car, making sure to keep the pressure on to the Argentinian driver. Coming down into the braking of turn 6. He's still not there close enough. That car in front of them, that is Laust Olsen, and that is for position.
Laust's last lap time at 2:38.8. Dechard's last lap time 2:39.1. So very, very similar in terms of the pace as we hop back to our second place runner in this GTO class. This is Mickey Friesen. Unfortunately for him, though, he has got a mirror full of Van Hicks in that number 3 car. Remember, we saw Van Hicks make the pass on Doug Cloud earlier in the race. Has yet to let go of Mickey Friesen. He's looking to try to get some more pressure on this purple number 6 car.
Yeah, it's been a nice recovery from the 3. He did start in 4th, so that was an overall gain for him, but I think it felt like maybe he was faster from quite early, so qualifying perhaps didn't go the way that he wanted, as these cars could definitely ride the curbs a little better.
I was just going to make a comment on that. The GTPs, you know, they look like a snake through that S section, while the GTOs are like, you know what, let's Pro 2 this thing over it.
The 4-wheel drive comes in great handy, I'm sure. Meanwhile, into the braking of 23. Still continuing to gain as best he can, Ian Haycox and Hamill Smith. Ian's lack of qualifying may have put him in a tough spot, but he is a tough customer, and he's not going to let it hold him down. He moves up to 10th.
Ian Haycox doing a nice job, and quite honestly, the lap times that he is accomplishing right now kind of puts him inside the top 5 for where these GTOs are. So maybe just a little bit of a better qualifying effort out of this number 14 car would have leapfrogged him up quite a few positions here in this race. But given that 16 minutes remaining, he's only 4.5 seconds back from Jared Swain. I don't think his race is quite done yet.
No, and even if he did catch some of those cars, if he gets to Martin Krejcik, it's 10 seconds up to Skovgaard. So that's probably about as high as he even get to go, depending on how quickly he catches them. Dechari once again here, now actually changing gear. He's gone from defense to attack as he's caught up Laust Olsen.
You're right. So it was kind of the defense on Brendan Lim, but now that they have caught that blue, yellow, and green number 13 of Laust Olsen, the shift of focus happens. and he can start to aggressively attack. And if anything, Ricciardi is also there. So it's gone from a 2-car battle now to a 4-car fight.
Interesting. So I wonder if Olsen is a bit of a plug here compared to everybody else, and can he hold on to it for the remaining minutes of this race? Because it certainly seems like the 17 has been catching up. And what's the traffic going to look like as well? Because the time that they had caught them before, I think we'll have one more full pass through of the GTO field for these prototypes.
I can report to you, I've got my view zoomed out pretty far with this blimp over here to check on our multi-class traffic, and I don't see anything that's directly in front of this group that we're watching right now, at least in terms of those GTO cars. So this should be a pretty fair fight, at least for now.
Yeah, the leaders will catch up to two of our stragglers, the 24 and the 23. That's Torres and Heinemann, I believe. But it is going to be a bit before they catch up to them. So it might be right at the very end, which could be good news, bad news, depending on who you are. If it's the last lap, you finally catch that traffic. On board with Davide, it looks like he's doing his best to size up Brendan Lim, but isn't close enough to do an attack yet.
Go through this, call it middle section of the racetrack here, where it kind of arcs out on the exit. I think that's a really neat shape, what they did with that corner exit there. Allow the drivers to kind of use a little bit more of that engine they got in the back of these cars here. And then through this, call it slower double left-hander here, accelerate your way through this corner. You see some of those bread box curbs on that left side. You don't want to touch those in the GTPs. And then short shoot straightaway right back down to this heavy brake zone into a sharp right-hander.
Oh, that was way off the apex for Brendan. You can see how much the 20 has gained on him in just that one corner alone. He's going to try and tuck into that slipstream, and he's got a bunch of speed in comparison. Look at it, already pops out down to the inside. That was like taking candy from a baby for Ricciardi.
Let's just make sure he's able to get it slowed down into turn number 1. Nice job, and now he settles back into the racing line. It really can depend if you're on the right side or the left side, as Brendan Lim kind of washes the nose a little bit once again in what was, I believe that was turn number 3 down there. So he is struggling already to keep up with that number 20. Sometimes a driver just needs to be reminded to take a deep breath every once in a while. You don't have to gain it all back in that first corner. It can come naturally. Just stick with them.
Lundberg gets another lap under his belt. 6.5 seconds back to Mickey Friesen. So he's sitting pretty at this stage, although we have seen in the past that when traffic comes through, that can really change the picture. So those 6.5 seconds are not a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination. But the Dutchman is right now in a good spot and is just trying to lay down the laps.
And to focus on the positives about Noel, his last lap time of 2:57.2, that second place car, 2:58.2. So if we're just looking at the performance, this black and gold number 4, I think as long as he keeps it mistake-free and well within the comfort zone when those GTPs come up, just let them have the inside, let them have the outside, just hope that they kind of present the car where they want to go. I don't think that he'll have an issue, just got to keep it on the black stuff.
And Lundberg's going to be hoping not to repeat earlier this morning, as he was in the Grand Prix Legends Series, which, again, long track. They were at the Nürburgring earlier today, and unfortunately he wrecked out right at the last lap. Did not get to finish the race. Just goes to show you can't take anything for granted. You got to stay focused. You see that 2 stabs he had to take to steer into the corner?
Yes, I did. And the fun thing about these Audis, though, is that if you do come up with a huge power slide, you stick your right foot in it, put your foot to the floor on terms of that gas, and just power slide through that thing. You might have to go off of the racetrack into the grass, but trust me, it will slide through it.
While Olenek on Grau. Grau does not go defensive, leaves the door open, and then finally shuts it as they steer into turn 1. Seems he felt safe enough this time. Christoph will have to try again later in that number 9 machine. They'll rise over towards turn 5 and then up towards turn 6. Well, too far away to attempt another pass here into this hairpin. They're still relatively close to fourth place Schwebig as well, so something worth fighting for if you're Grau, not just defending.
And to talk about Schwebig there, kind of the lead of this three-car train, he's actually picked up 2 positions over Farron and Christoph from earlier in this race. So it might be one of those situations that took advantage in traffic, and now these 2 cars that are behind have kind of finally settled in, and their race pace has brought them right back up to that rear spoiler.
That's a good point. In 10 minutes, the final quarter of this event, it's coming down to it now. And with the laps being 2.5 minutes, I mean, you really are not going to have too many times through into those passing zones. Back to Ian Haycox. He has caught Swaim, but unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be getting up to Brandon White. Krejcik might be the highest car that he's able to catch up to here in the number 15. That's if he can get by Jared first, who he does seem to have better pace than.
But, I mean, talk about a great drive from this number 14 car. And here comes Jacob Reed, our overall leader. He's going to go around the outside of this left-hander, passes Ian Haycox, and now he's going to get through on Jared Swaim and then look forward to Martin as well. But I was going to kind of put the number 14 up in the heavens a little bit here and say how good he's been doing. Remember on that opening lap, he completely overshot that turn number 6 corner and was way out there in the grass, I think 5-7 seconds behind the entire field. And here he is already inside the top 10 with the potential of 8th place on the table in front of him.
Exactly. So he's already trying to go for it. But yeah, I was going to say that's from a long ways back. So maybe just seeing if he could scare Swaim off the racing line. No such luck this time as they weave through 1, 2, and 3.
He's right there on the bumper, though, and we've seen that number 18 make a few mistakes throughout the race, and now he's got a tremendous run. Had to lift off the throttle to make sure he gets the nose tucked into the corner. Swaim really ran it all the way out onto that exit curb. Nice job carrying the speed there, but now Ian Haycox right back up about 1 car length back. Maybe a little bit slower on that upshift, but then catches those gears and starts to accelerate with that number 18.
Up into the braking of turn 9 now. Ahead of them there was a little lockup from Krejcik. He's also pushing to try and keep away from this pair. He knows that there could be his position on the line depending on how quickly Haycox is able to dispose of Jared. And here we go, getting ready to head through that S's section again, through the kink of turn 14. And now they have to try and weave their way through and straight line as much as they can through this back and forth.
As we watch this GTO battle, I can report that our overall lead has come down to 1 second. It is due to traffic and Jacob Reed just kind of tiptoeing his way through and Andreas being a little bit more aggressive, but Valenteus has yet to give up.
Watching with Ian Haycox, we're going to switch over to Farron Grau. Schwebig still able to hold on to 4th, coming into one of those heavy braking zones down at 23. And it sounds like we may have had an issue with Brandon White. Up and off he scoots. Like I said, there's places where there's not a lot to hit, and he went a long ways off the course.
Very unfortunate there for that number 21 car, but like you said, not a whole lot to hit, so thankfully got back onto the racetrack as this 3-pack battle of Schwebig, Grau, and Olencik continues to rage on here, all only separated by a couple car lengths apiece. And ooh, look at all this GTO traffic. This is going to get very interesting.
Without a doubt, you're right on board with Christoph now. Schwebig gets by 1. Now Grau has to wait patiently. You can see the brake lights flash on, knowing that he can't get there. Whoa, just enough space at the apex for Christoph. The Polish driver has made room where there was none.
A little bit of an elbow out maneuver, but thankfully didn't push the Audi completely off the racetrack. That could have ended much, much worse than what it actually did. And now we accelerate out onto the front straight. And if anything, check this run out from Christoph, but they're all trying to draft the GTOs. Can he get up close enough to make a move into turn number 1? He's got the nose presenting, but that car in front even deeper on the brakes with these GTOs. It goes back to what I was saying. The more aggressive you are through this pack, the more time you can make up.
That was Krajcik who had to get off of it because he had to leave room down into the apex. Now has Swaim on the attack. It's like trying to have a race in the middle of rush hour traffic. It is craziness for these drivers. So much to focus on down to the inside, and he gets denied as Krajcik will shut the door, but he went a little deep himself, coming off the corner using the four-wheel drive. Jared Swaim back at it once again, looks to switch underneath, but nope, he gets balked.
He's really trying to carry a ton of entry speed with these over-unders and is in the right position to try to get this pass done. However, that car, that blue and yellow number 15, has just made it so wide. Is this the opportunity? Swaim up the inside. Can he accelerate his way through? It is still door to door. Martin is able to defend from the outside.
I'm really impressed with the way that Martin has survived in spite of the speed that Jared is showing at this stage of the race on the back foot, and still he's holding him back. Meanwhile, live, we can see our leader dealing with a little bit of I think the end of the traffic. Yeah, that's Lundberg. So that's our two leaders going by one another. As on the main screen, Krajcik still leads Swaim. And surprisingly, I can't believe Haycox hasn't gotten stuck into this.
I'm going to agree with you there, too. I think that he was kind of patiently waiting for everything to kind of unfold in front of him. And oh boy, we got another train of GTP cars passing. So we got a 3-pack of GTP cars in a fight, about to pass a 3-pack of GTO cars in a fight.
All for position. And Olsen gets through. Looks like Dakari, who we ride on board through, is going to follow. That's a little wide there from Olsen. He's been given space. Oh, and behind him, you can see on screen, somebody's gone completely off. That was Ricciardi.
Oh my goodness, it's not over yet. Dakari into the back of Laust. Olsen spins him around. Unfortunately, that's what we were kind of waiting for when you get all of these cars battling amongst each other. It is elbows out, and let me tell you, it is still side by side between Ricciardi and Dakari over here. 3 wide going into the corner. Unfortunately, the white car of Ricciardi goes off again.
And Haycox is gotten by Swain in all of that, who also Ian made a little excursion off into the grass. Still got a little bit of a battle between Lim and Ricciardi. So now Ricciardi is playing defense when he was on the attack before. Lim is going to sneak through in the madness. And like we said, they were going to catch these cars towards the end of the race. It is very much playing a factor.
Oh my goodness, let's watch this white car of Ricciardi. Look at how aggressive he's already being, trying to get by. That's Brandon White, and unfortunately for David, he's kind of ran it deep into a couple of these brake zones the prior lap, so lost touch with that battle just a touch, and now he's trying to gather it right back up.
Oh, and bad news for fans of Swain. You can see the black mark on the tower. He has a black flag for too many incident points. He is in that pit lane. I wonder if he's also dealing with a little bit of damage because he's come into his stall, and usually it should be just a drive-through. So was it involved with here? Did he make contact maybe? Yep, there it is.
Yeah, that was Dakari spinning Laust Olsen around, and like you said, yeah, Swaim into the back of it as well. So not just a GTP contact, but kind of that domino effect.
And that might not have looked like much, but you have to remember that with the four-wheel drive, if you touch any corner of these cars, of the Audis, you can damage the drive, and you're basically a sitting duck for the rest of the time. So while there isn't much time left, I wonder if it hurt the steering or the power delivery on the car.
Well, Jacob Reed, I think, is looking at one more corner plus one more lap here. I believe this is turn 35, so he is looking towards Barney, grabbing that white flag this time by.
Still has only a 2-second gap to Valenteus, but he has kept him at arm's length this race. And to top it off, Jacob Reed just set the fastest lap of anybody out there, which is, wow. I guess he must have finally had a clean lap, although he should have had some for earlier in the race. Maybe the fact the car was light here at the end kind of helped him, but there is still speed in the number 2.
Well, I'll put it into perspective for everybody. Jacob Reed qualified at a 229.3. That is on empty fuel and brand new tires. He has been racing on these tires for, call it, the last 40 minutes on the tires, and he just turned a 2:30.3, only 1 second slower than his qualifying effort.
Fortunately, I think those two three-way battles kind of tangling with one another kind of cost us some of our closest fights out there, although Ian Haycox is trying to stick close to Martin Krejcik, so that could be a good battle farther down in the GTOs. Noel Lundberg, in the meantime, we said it was about 5 or 6 seconds before. It is all the way up to 11 seconds with no one even in the same time zone now.
He's still turning laps a full second faster than anybody else in class right now. Noel Lundberg just has to keep it nice and easy, and he'll collect a checkered flag. Mistake-free is what he is looking for.
Very much so. And I don't think, there is nobody that he's going to catch here in this last bit. So this green and yellow liveried car has basically got free reign. He only has to worry about himself here at the end as he comes through 27 and into 28 and 29. This is one of those fiddly little spots that probably feels so frustrating. A lot of long corners through there that you have to hit those apexes just right before it switches into the blind turn 30, and then a short spurt of speed down into 31 and 32, all kind of working together as one long double apexer towards the end of the lap here for Jacob Reed, current reigning champion, and showing why he holds that crown right now. He can't even be bothered by Valenteus, who is a giant in his own right. Out of the final corner, Jacob Reed will take another victory here in the IMSA Vintage Series, this time for the first race at the Bend.
Perfectly executed from that green and yellow number 2 car, drama-free unlike last week, so he'll collect another checkered flag. And big shout out to Valenteus as well, who hung tough throughout that entire thing. This is going to be our fight for what is a top 5. Farron Grau currently hanging on over Olencic. Let's see if Christoph can maybe make a move. There's one more big break zone right here. This is turn number 34. Doesn't look like he's got the nose to the inside at all, so it's just up to turn 35. Can he get the drive off of the corner? You see Pepe Fuentes round out the podium. Looks like Farron Grau is going to hang on to the top 5.
By the skin of his teeth. By the way, this man, Noel Lundberg, leading, is going to push the car, still smoking the tires a little bit, lifting that right front coming down into some of these slow final corners. And he is going to win by an impressive margin of 11 seconds over the next nearest car. Noel Lundberg, your winner in GTOs.
I think Mickey Friesen is coming around the final corner right now, so he is going to finish in second in that GTO class. Some happy wiggles across the start-finish line, and Van Hicks is only about 4 seconds back. He is going to round out the podium in very fashionable style, getting a new car. And oh my goodness, Ian Haycox in the last series of corners here, he is going to go up into 7th.
I mean, he was aggressive. He had nothing to lose, I think, here. Krejcik was aggressively defending as well, but they managed to make it work. You'll see it here as he was a little slow off the corner, and Ian knew it, was covered off at the last second and said, all right, you're going to leave the inside open? I'll take it. And off he goes into 7th. That's as high as he'll climb, but I still think that's fantastic, having started in 13th. Ian Haycox just can't be kept down as Krejcik, White, Hamelsmith, and Heinemann going to round up the last of our finishers in this race. Well, that was a fascinating first time at the Bend. Certainly some reasons I could see maybe drivers don't like it, but it certainly gave us excitement as well.
It definitely did. I liked the multi-class traffic, but you could also say anytime you put 2 very differently speed cars on a brand new racetrack, it's going to create some excitement. I think that everybody kept it clean, though. Lots of times these brand new tracks can kind of bring out crash fest. We didn't really see that here.
No, they did a very good job at keeping it clean. And at the top of it, it was Jacob Reed who captures another victory over Adrius Valenteus. Not by the biggest of margins, only 2 seconds between them. Pepe Fuentes with a solid podium, although he was a long ways back from them. Schwebig was 4th as Farron Grau P5, and then Christoph Olenek in 6th position. Emilio Dicciari was in 7th. David Ricciardi is P8 with Brennan Lim in ninth. Lau Stolson, unfortunately, a 10th today after he got spun off at one point. And then the last of them will be Andre Diaz here in the GTPs.
Over to the GTOs, it is Noel Lundberg who is victorious in that black and gold number 4 car. Mickey Friesen going to finish in second with Jorm Van Hicks back here in third. Doug Cloud finishing in fourth. Josh Brain in fifth with Sam Skovgaard, sorry about that, in sixth. Ian Haycox with a tremendous run, +6. Actually, our biggest mover of the day throughout any of the classes is Ian Haycox, +6, finishing seventh. Martin Krejcik in eighth. Brandon White in ninth. Jamie Hummel-Smith back here in 10th place, and a couple more across the page. It's going to be Richard Hindman in 11th. Matthew Torres back here in 12th, and then Jared Swaim. Unfortunately, we saw that contact towards the end of the race, kind of took him out there. He's going to finish in 13th.
Yeah, until then, he seemed to be doing a pretty good job in what was a very exciting battle, too. But sometimes that's the nature of racing. As I think we're given just a couple moments here in case we get any drivers in to chat with us. We'd certainly like to hear some thoughts about this track, since I know some didn't seem too thrilled about racing at this new circuit, but I kind of enjoyed getting to watch them out there, Joey. And again, I think the one thing I will say, and I say that about a lot of tracks, it needs some corner names.
This is where you and I differ, okay? Because I'm used to hopping into a race car and the track map is right there on the steering wheel with the numbers, right? I know turn numbers. I don't know turn names. That's all your world over there.
Absolutely.
I did love this racetrack, though. In terms of the racing, I think what I'd really like to see is maybe like a true spec series. Let's get some MX-5s or something out here. Something that's momentum cars around nearly 5 miles. That would be awesome to watch.
So like a 4.5-minute lap or somewhere.
Correct.
In that range.
Correct.
It'll be wild, but it sounds like we are going to close up. Sadly, no one's come to chat with us, but we do want to give a huge thank you to the community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. And a thank you goes to our team, Joey, Christian, and Dougie here at GSRC. Our next race is going to be thankfully shorter, but another somewhat new track to the sim, Jerez. It will be Saturday, October 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern. And then later on this weekend, we are going to be back with the majors at the Charlotte Roval. Looking forward to that. The new layout is pretty fun, I have to admit, and certainly provides some fascinating opportunities. Make sure to check out our other races that we have here listed on our screen. And until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.
This is iRacing.